Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on how to measure the effectiveness of print media advertising. This is our 17th webinar in a row, and we are extremely thankful to you guys for your constant support and feedback to make this possible. So today I have with me Jaswant Padiyar. Jaswant is the account manager at Tatvik, and Jaswant has a deep knowledge in the field of web analytics and SEM, and today is going to help us understand how we can measure the effectiveness of print media advertising. I am your host, Bani Sitani, and I'm just going to listen to Jaswant what he has to share with us. So before spending much of my time, I'm just going to make Jaswant the presenter, and so that we can all learn what he has to say.
Sure, thanks, Bonnie. Hello, everyone. Today we are going to discuss, the effectiveness of print media advertising. You've heard a lot about, online ads, television ads. Now let's focus on print media advertising. And broadly, what's there, in the webinar today? We just discuss the outline as such. So basically, we are going to discuss the second screen effect, right? The method to understand the users from print, how exactly you measure, print advertising, the analysis and outcomes, expected outcomes out of it, and how do you maximize your print campaign exposure, right? Apart from doing your print ads, how do you maximize the performance of your print campaign, right? And at the end of it, we'll have a Q&A session where you can ask me any questions, concerns that you may have, and I'll try and address them as much as possible. Right. So let's get going. First, let's define what exactly is a second screen effect. So if you were to, look at today's users, users from, yesteryears. So basically, this is how you would see someone, consuming print ads as such. So this is how you would see typically the users going through the newspapers in the morning or in the train, and trying to get as much as information as possible, and that's where most of the ads were shown. What has changed now is this. So you see the users were still reading the newspapers, the ads and all remain the same. However, they have another medium or another device associated with them, and that's a mobile phone or a computer or a laptop. And therefore, they do not wait, for you to figure out for them. They do not wait, for example, to make a decision. So what they'll do is they'll find something in the newspapers, and straight away they'll grab their phone and do a search on it and figure out what exactly that offer is about, or what exactly is is on offer, or something that they like, right? And maybe they'll save it for a later time, or make a purchase then and there if they like the offer. So it's very important to take into cognizance the effect of the second screen, right? And that's what we are going to focus on as well. Now, if you were to look at the advertising spend in India in 2015, the expected spend, so how much is it going to be like, right? And if you see the maximum, pie of this pie chart goes to the print media, which is 39.6%, whereas television is close second with 38.1%. Now, if it's such a huge spend on print media, it becomes imperative to measure its performance, to measure its effect, and to optimize it. Basically, the media plan, the ads, the placement, the time, what exactly you're going to do with it, and also the leverage, the second screen effect of it, so that you are there where exactly your user wants you to be, or where you expect your users to be, right? So basically, that's what we are going to discuss today. So now let's go to the next slide and see, what are the methods that you would employ in order to understand print media as such and measure your audience, right? So we'll focus on the method to understand the users from print, and basically what we'll do here is we'll understand how to measure, what to measure, and its limitations. And once we are able to understand what to measure and its limitations, and so what we'll try and do here is first we'll look at the current landscape. What exactly is happening, right? Once we understand that, right, we'll be able to figure out what better we can do, right? So currently what you do is you measure. One way is your online behavior, and the other is the offline behavior, right? So what do you do in this case? For offline behavior, how do you measure? Your typical measuring tactics here are you do some interviews, you try to speak directly to your users, and you try to figure out how did they like your ad or your product or service that you offered, and what do they think about that ad, right? So this is all that you will do, all right? And the second part is you'll be using web analytics data to measure online behavior. Now, of course, there are a number of limitations of offline measurements, as you would have seen, right? For offline measurements, it's about the geographical reach that you can have with offline measurements. How many users you can reach, right? Because if you're doing a print ad across the country, then you may not be able to reach a certain percentage of users to figure out whether that ad was relevant to them or not, and did it serve its purpose, right? Then there is the demographic reach. You do not know who your users are, and whether you reach the right audience or not, and the feedback that you've got from the interviews and surveys that you've done, whether that is relevant to your demographic targeting based on what products you sell. And then, of course, there are sampling errors, which makes it very difficult to gauge the true picture. So for sampling, you would employ an agency ideally or some other company as such to do the sampling for you, and to collect the data basically. And so there's bound to be some errors in that as well. And last is the cost factor, right? Since you have to do some interviews and surveys, trying to reach people and get their feedback in an offline measurement, so it's definitely going to cost you a lot, right? So all these aspects you need to, those are the limitations of offline measurement as such. And so let's discuss what is the current measurement landscape as such, right? Now, online behavior, if you see, it's more direct, right? Because here you are speaking to your audience directly via web analytics tools, right? And you figure out what exactly, is the response of your audience. Whereas offline behavior is more indirect. You rely on interviews, you rely on surveys to learn the impact of your ads. Now, what do you want to measure for measuring the effectiveness of print media? What do you measure? So let's talk something about it, right? What we measure, what is important for you, is longevity of the impact of an advert. You've done your ad, but how long does it last, right? How long does the impact of that ad last? If the impact of your ad lasts for a month or something, why would you want to do a couple of ads, right? If your impact lasts for a day, then why would you want to do multiple ads in a day, right? For example, on a television. So you need to measure the longevity of the impact of the advert. The second most important part is the size of the impact of an advert. How many users you were able to reach or influence, and so that we're able to make a decision either to purchase a product or not, right? So that's the second important part of measuring print media. So what to measure? Usually the measurement of newspaper is based on reach and the subscribers, right? And let's see what we measure. We've taken an example of a typical e-commerce funnel as such. And if you see here, basically, first you have your visitors, and then the subscribers, maybe they subscribe to your newsletter, and then they turn into buyers. And once they like the product, maybe they turn into repetitive buyers, and then your fans. So where would you focus on? Ideally, where you can focus on is directly your visitors, because that's where you can make them, maximum influence as such. So you focus on your visitors, and you try to see, how you measure that, right? Now, how do you measure? Right? You've decided what to measure, right? Now, how would you measure it? Okay. So we've discussed the offline media and the online media, the offline behavior and the online behavior. What would you do? The first step, which involves measurement, is data unification. Unifying the data from web analytics and print ad data, right? The second step involves, about the impact size. What exactly is the size of that impact? So basically, you'll, statistically measure the change in the key metric before and after the print ad is published. So once a print ad is published, what was the data prior to that and what post that, right? And how long was the impact? Measure the duration for which the change in metric is visible, basically. So that's the impact longevity. Now, let's see what are the data sources which we are going to use, right? Basically, for measuring the impact of a print ad. So print ad data, this is the data which you will get from a print ad. The date when your ad was published. Your platform, what publisher did you use? Was it, which newspaper basically? Was it Times of India or the Hindu or something else? On what page did you publish your ad? Was it the front page or in between somewhere? And the size of the ad. Was it a full page ad, a half page ad, or any other ad size? And what was the market, your target market? Was it a national daily or was it a local daily that you were, that you advertised it on? And the day of the week, what day did you advertise on? Because there's definitely a lot of difference between weekdays and weekends in terms of the performance of your ads. And how much did it cost you? And basically what we'll do is we'll map this data with web analytics data and to come to a conclusion as to how was the impact. Right? So what do we collect in a web analytics data? So out of these, you see date and time is what we use as a key, to map it with web analytics data. Web analytics data provides you returning users, new users, organic searches, revenue. Okay. You can combine this data from both the data sources, and this is something that we've come across when measuring, the effect of a print ad on one of our e-commerce clients. Now, I'll just brief you on what exactly is this green line and the red line. Okay. So the red line, is the one which measures the actual users prior and post the ad is served. And the green line is basically a baseline, right? Which is the upper limit of the expected value. So we've taken the upper limit of the expected value as a baseline, and the red line, right, which shows the actual users. So what we've done is, if you see at the ad is published at around 8 o'clock, right? We've assumed that all ads are served. Basically, all the newspapers have been distributed at around 8 o'clock, right? And post that is when we've measured the performance. So from around 9, you see there's a slight spike, and it keeps on increasing, right? So what are we measuring here? We're measuring both the longevity and the impact. Now, how do we measure the longevity? How much does it come to? So if you look at this graph, the horizontal line, right, it stretches from somewhere around 10 here to close to 4 here. Yeah. So approximately around 6 to 7 hours is the longevity of the impact of that ad. And if you were to take how much is the impact size, so compared to the baseline, which is the upper limit, this is the impact size, right? So if you're to take in terms of numbers, it's somewhere around comes to around 225, 275 here, and it goes up to 350. So that's the impact size compared to the upper limit. When compared absolutely, it comes somewhere around from around 220 to 350. So that's the impact. Right. So you can see how much is the impact and the longevity of a particular ad. So that's a pretty significant impact as such, you see. Now, when you're measuring this, this is not an absolute value as such in terms of measuring the impact, and it may change due to several factors, and you need to be aware of them. So what are the things you need to be aware of? So be aware of, typically when you present this graph, your manager might say, okay, so this is what it is, and this is how much I should get, right? So then you set the expectations of your boss and your clients, because you need to manage the expectations, and there are several other factors also which may affect the performance of your ad, and you need to take into cognizance those as well. Now, the second is the data quality issues from the agency. Suppose you get data about the performance of your ad from an agency, and due to pressure of performance, the agency might not give you the right data. They might up the numbers, and the data collection process may not be that sound as well. So you need to consider that also. Then, if there are AdWords running on multiple print platforms at the same time, suppose you are doing print ads on various newspapers, then how would you measure the performance of each newspaper on using data analytics tools, unless you've got a benchmark data for measured for earlier newspapers? So then maybe you can compare, but that too will not be very accurate because of the time, right? Because the performance at that time may have been affected by some other reasons, right? Next is the combined impact of other media, which is maybe, for example, you take television. So the impact here can be very high in case of both the media running at the same time, right? And if that is happening, the combined impact of media with television and print ads will not give you the true picture. So you need to be aware of that as well. And there are other, unknowns as well, which can affect the traffic. So, this is a great metric to measure as such, but however, you cannot say that this is absolute and this is everything as such. I mean, there are also a lot of other factors which may impact the performance of your print ad apart from these. So now we'll move to the analysis, and once we've figured out what exactly do we measure, and how we measure, right? Let's move to the analysis and expected outcomes of it. So the analysis and expected outcomes, what are we going to discuss here? Basically the longevity and the media schedule as such, once we analyze the outcomes as such. So let's look at the longevity of the impact and how do you measure it. So what we've done here is we are using average duration of impact on print advertisement. Basically, what we've done here is use statistical technique paired t-test to measure the impact duration. And this is with 90% confidence levels. What we've done here, and what exactly are we measuring? Right? So we've taken these 4 metrics: returning users, new users, organic searches, and sessions, and we've tried to see how much is the impact and how long does it last, right? So basically, if you see, there's a increase of around 5.7 hours in terms of the returning users, and for new users around 6 hours, for organic searches 6.63 hours, and for sessions an increase of around 6 hours from the regular users that you would get. So because of the ad, this is what has been the increase in terms of the number of hours that the increase lasted. Now we've learned the longevity, the impact. Now, how do you optimize your media schedule to make the most of it? So to optimize the media schedule, we've taken 4-week data, and each week we've segregated into 3 parts, basically early week, midweek, and weekend. So early week will is Monday, Tuesday. Midweek is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and weekend is Saturday, Sunday, right? And what we've tried to do here is we've compared the publishers, basically newspaper 1 with newspaper 2 and newspaper 3. And this is to analyze how each newspaper is doing, so that you can decide which newspaper you want to go with, and what time of the week, what day is it doing really well, right? And you can select that day for your print ads to be published. So if you typically, this helps you understand which newspaper does well and what are the days, right? Also, you need to take into confidence the qualitative and the quantitative aspect of the data as well, which I'll come to later in the slide. So let's see what exactly are we doing here. So this is platform-wise distribution. The number of spots of unique adverts over a period of 28 days is what we've taken, and the percentage of relative change for 6 hours in key metrics. So the time duration that this change has been noticed is for 6 hours, right? So this is 6 hours is the time period that we've taken. And what do we see in terms of the change? Okay. So if you see here for week 2, we compared newspaper 1 and 2, and what we see here is for newspaper 1 there's a 13% increase, and then for newspaper 2 12%. Right? So there isn't any significant increase as such, right? So it's more or less negligible, right? You know that in the middle of the week, week 2, and in the middle of the week it's not doing that great. Whereas if you were to compare here, if you go to week 3, right, and over the weekend, you see the number of ads served is 2, and the impact or the increase is 97% increase, which is quite significant, right? So you know that during the weekends your ads are doing really well, maybe depending upon your ad, depending upon the industry that you serve. So you see that the weekend is a good time for you, right? And you would want to focus your ads mostly during the weekends. Now another aspect which you need to look at is about qualitative versus quantitative data. So here what I'd like to do is you take this data which says for early week, in week 4, here which is 75% and 59%. All right. So let me give you an example. Let's just assume this data here, is this data here, which is 75 and 59%. Let's assume this is 50% and 40%, right? Let's assume that. Okay. So or if you just keep it 75% and 15%, that's also fine. If you were to figure out which is better, then you would say, okay, 75% is obviously better because this newspaper is doing well, right? And you would want to advertise on newspaper 1. But think, is this the right analysis? Is this the right way of looking at it? Well, let's assume newspaper 1 has got 10 lakh users on a regular basis, right? And it gives you a 50% increase. Let's assume 75% as 50%, all right? And it gives you a 50% increase, which comes to around 15 lakh users total, right? The 50% increase. So effectively, the increase is about 5 lakh users. True. And for newspaper 2, on a regular basis, if the number of users are 20 lakh users, and if you get an increase of 40%, right, which will lead to a total of 28 lakh users. Therefore, initially it was 20 and now it's 28 lakh. So effective increases of 8 lakh users with 40% increase. Whereas in the earlier case with 50% increase, the effective increase was 5 lakh. So in this case, 40 lakh is a 40% increase for a second newspaper is still higher than a 50% increase in the earlier. To take both the qualitative as well as the quantitative impact in terms of the data that you collect, right, to make your decision. Now, you might say, what kind of media, what kind of ads are doing well, in order to optimize the media schedule? So here, what we've done is we have compared a full page ad with a half page ad with a quarter page ad over a 4-week period again, and try to gauge its performance. So if you see here, for early week, for a full page ad, and we've done 2 half page ads, and we compared the performance, we've seen that a full page ad has led to a 60% increase, whereas 2 half page ads have led to an 80% increase. Now, assuming the cost overall for 1 half page ad equals the 2 half page ads, right? You might want to, focus on half page ads because that has effectively led to an increase in the number of users, right? Because it's at 80% compared to 60% for a full page ad. That's one way of looking at it. Now, if you're looking at during the weekend, we've done a 1 full page ad, 1 full page ad, 2 half page, and 3 quarter pages ad. And here also, if you see that during the weekend, a full page ad has got a 97% increase in users compared to a half page and a quarter page, which got 45 and 36% respectively. So then you know what type of ad you need to focus on and on what date. So now you know what time of the week you need to focus on, what day, what week you need to focus on, what ad you need to focus on, and what newspaper you need to focus on, right? And this will help you in optimizing your media schedule. So these are some of the things which you need to be careful about when making a decision. Now what you've done here is basically you've understood the importance of print media, the effect of second screen, how do you measure it, what are the limitations of your measurements, how to set the right expectations, what exactly do you measure, and how do you analyze the measurement, and how do you optimize it so that you get the best ROI. Now, this is related to print. Now, apart from print, what can you do so that you can maximize your print budget and get the best ROI out of it? So there are some other things which you need to focus on. So maximizing print campaign exposure. How do you do that? Well, you've done your print ad, and when someone is searching for your product or service, you need to be there right now. Usually people will search on their tablets or mobile phones, and you want to be there. You can also run a search campaign specifically during that time period, so that whenever users are searching for your product or service on the internet, your ad is served, and you can connect well with your users, right? So you need to get all the searches for a brand and product or service, and maybe you can increase your budget in case you're already doing your ads. Maybe you can increase your budget for that day when your print ad is published. You can also do display, and your ad needs to be on any of the publisher's site where your audience might serve. Basically, you have the publishers, your social networks, your Facebook, Twitter, and your webmail in case you are doing email marketing as well. All containing the same message, so that you connect with the user really well, and it stays, you stay in the user's mind. Next, your homepage. What should your homepage have, basically? So during the day your print ad is published, right? Your homepage should typically be talking about your ad and nothing else. And it should communicate the same message, which is advertised in a newspaper. And it should also have your call to action, what exactly you want the user to do when they visit your website. Right. So apart from that, you also need to have your site in place, your products available, and it should not be out of stock. And basically, overall, you need to present a good user experience. So that's those are the things which you can take care of. Will help you, maximize on your print ads. Apart from this, what do you do? Suppose you've not done a print ad. Your competitor has done a print ad. So what do you do then? Do you sit back and take notice? So what do you do then? You've not spent on print ads, but you can always ensure that your ad is served on all other online media, on search ads, on display ads, on your homepage, so that if users are searching for that particular product which your competitor has advertised, you also provide an alternative to the user and try to make the maximum out of your competitor's budget on print. And this way you can save a lot of money and also ensure that you get more users to your site. Maybe you could, suppose you have a better pricing than the user, you can highlight that as well. So these are some of the aspects in which you can maximize the value of your print campaign and reach out to your users. So I think that's about it. I think that's all that I have. And in case you have any questions, please feel free to put up any questions, and we'll take as much as possible.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Jaswant. It was a wonderful webinar. I'm sure all the people enjoyed it. Okay, so we have a quick announcement before we go on to the Q&A section. We have a next webinar on Google Analytics Premium, and it is on 23rd of June, same time that we are having right now, and it's going to be taken by Ravi Pathak. So basically, we're going to talk in detail about everything about Google Analytics Premium. So I'm just sending you across the registrations link so that you can all register for the webinar. And yep, let's move on to the Q&A section. I'm sure people will be waiting to sort of address the queries.
So I think we'll take a couple of questions as the time permits.
Absolutely.
So I've got one question here, which says, would it be possible to measure the impact of a color ad versus a black and white ad? Of course, it's possible. I mean, basically, this does not change anything. So if you've done a color ad, you measure it, the data remains the same. Yeah. And you can compare it with, in fact, you can even compare your color ad with your black and white ad, and see which one is performing better, right? The second question which I have is, how much data would it take to execute entire analysis post collecting data? I think this is more specific to the package which we could provide. So it usually takes about 2 weeks, including the recommendation in terms of do's and don'ts, for us to provide you with an entire analysis post collecting the data. So I think 2 weeks should be fine. Is your analysis the third? I think this would be the last question, I guess. And the others we'll also answer. You can email to us. I'll see to it that those are answered as well. The last question which we have here is your analysis for entire e-commerce store, or is it for only product level? And would it be possible for it to run for a single product? Would you recommend to execute at product level? Yes, the answer is yes. It's possible to perform at the product level. Basically, it depends on you whether you wanted to run it for the entire e-commerce store, or for any particular product that you want to highlight. That if you are running some promotions, you can use that. So yes, this applies to both at the single product level, or multiple products, or set of products, the category, or the entire e-commerce store. So yes, it's possible. I think that's it. In case you have any more questions, due to time constraints, I'm not able to take any more questions. But in case you have, you can always write to me.
Absolutely. So just what I have.
And that's it. Thanks so much.
Yep. So we have a couple of more questions, but what I will do is I will sort of email you guys and respond to you in the answers of just one. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us today for this webinar. I request you to all share your feedback through the feedback form once you end the webinar, once the webinar ends. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jaswant. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks, everyone, for listening to me so patiently. I hope it was helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.